Welcome back. Here we are. In this lesson, we are going to talk about credit-based appreciation and how you can benefit from the Fed. Now, when I say the Fed, of course, I'm talking about the Federal Reserve Bank, the central bank for the United States of America. That bank has been around for about 100 years. It's very controversial. A lot of people don't like central banks and the Fed, and I rather agree with them, but they can really benefit us a lot as investors. We can do very well in benefiting from them as long as our strategy is aligned with theirs. And as you dive in more and more to this course, you'll see that one of my primary focuses is the idea of aligning our investment strategy with the most powerful entities the human race has ever known. What are those entities? They are governments and central banks, and they are incredibly powerful. Now, many investors try and buck that trend. They try and say that they don't like those entities and they don't want to align their investment strategy with them. I say, if you can't beat them, join them. They're here to stay for probably a pretty long time, and they've got incredibly powerful forces backing them up, not the least of which is the military. You'll hear a lot of people talk about gold and thinking that gold is so great. These are called gold bugs. And I'm not a gold bug at all because, although the arguments are very interesting, they say that, money isn't, or the dollar specifically, or any other currency on earth pretty much, isn't backed by anything. It's not backed by gold. And ever since 1971, when Nixon closed the gold window, President Nixon, he really changed the world of government spending and central banking. And when you see this around the world, what you come to realize is that, yes, that is true. The currency isn't backed by gold, but you know what it is backed by? It's backed by giant military forces. It's backed by, these governments that control armies, okay, especially the United States. So when we talk about benefiting from the Fed, just remember that this could be any central bank around the world. It doesn't have to be the Federal Reserve in the United States. I'm just using that as an example because it obviously is the largest central bank in the world and the most powerful. But the concept applies to any central bank, really, and the concept of inflation and appreciation. So we're going to learn how to calculate payment affordability based on interest rates. We're going to learn how to calculate the affordability impact of $1,000 in monthly payment if interest rates increase by 1% or decrease by 1%. This makes a really, really large difference. It may seem like it's not that much. It's only 1%. But that is not true. When people say that kind of stuff, they don't know how to do math. Why do I say that with such passion? Well, because that 1% is relative to the initial interest rate. For example, if you're borrowing at 4%, and rates go up by 1%, meaning that the rates go to 5%, that is not a 1% increase, folks. I know most of you in this community, you're very intelligent and you would never think this way, but the way the average man on the street thinks is he doesn't get it. He thinks, well, that was just a 1% increase. It can't be that bad. No, it was a 25% increase, okay? Or if you take it away, a 20% decrease. It depends which way you're looking at it, obviously. But the point being that the increase is relative to the initial or future rate. That is my point, okay? So we're going to learn how to calculate the affordability of a property based on multiple interest rates. Now, this concept of affordability is critically important. You've heard about probably an index called the Housing Affordability Index, and that is one of the best indices out there for understanding where the market is going. It's not foolproof. It doesn't tell you everything. It sadly lacks in understanding the concept of immigration. I remember one guru who's still around, who likes to make a lot of predictions, and who's been right about several of them. It also is really wrong on some things because it's looking at housing affordability index only. But in a market like, I'll just give you an example, California. In a market like California, where you have a lot of immigration, you're not really wanting to just compare housing affordability based on the median home price and the median income, or even if it's on averages, the average home price and the average income in a given area. You can't calculate really properly the impact of immigrants coming in with lots of money. So housing affordability index, it's great, but it's certainly not everything, okay? And we'll talk about that more in our ongoing webinars and sessions and so forth. So we're going to learn how to calculate the affordability based on multiple interest rates. Okay, moving on here. So what happens here? What is credit-based appreciation? What is that? Well, when you have lower interest rates from the Fed, the Federal Reserve, you have increased purchasing power for buyers. Of course, when the rates are lower, people can buy more. And if they can buy more, guess what? People buy a house, or investors buy a property, almost always based on a payment, not a price. And you know what? People pretty much do that with automobiles too, don't they? They buy it based on a payment, not the price. So if the property is $200,000 as an example, or if it's $500,000, nobody's thinking about shelling out $200,000 or $500,000 in cash most of the time. They're buying based on the monthly payment. What if we have lower payments on a given mortgage amount? Well, then we're going to have upward pressure on prices. Credit-based appreciation is driven by lower interest rates that increase affordability. This places upward pressure on prices, since the same monthly payment will now buy more house. So if you can buy more house, most people, they're going to buy as much as they can. That's the way the housing market works. People will usually buy the highest priced house they can possibly qualify for. You notice I said qualify, not afford. Those are kind of two different things sometimes, as we saw during the Great Recession, okay? Okay, so what is payment affordability? It is the price of a house in terms of the total monthly payment instead of the purchase price, as we've obviously talked about. Interest rates, mortgage terms, in other words, how long is the mortgage, right? Or what kind of terms? Is it interest only? Is it amortized? By the way, let me tell you about the word amortization. Amort comes from the Latin word, which means to kill. So when you amortize the mortgage, meaning that on a monthly basis you pay principal and interest as you go through time, you kill the mortgage. Amortize it. It means you kill it off, you pay it off, right? These are both highly critical drivers of payment affordability for real estate. The lesson badge template incorporates calculations for you automatically, so we're going to make it really easy for you. Okay, how do we calculate the affordability impact of $1,000 in monthly payments? Let's take a look at a scenario here. The affordability impact of interest rate fluctuations varies depending on the principal and the interest rate characteristics of that mortgage. When the principal balance is higher, the sensitivity to interest rate fluctuations, both up and down, is of course amplified. It's magnified because we're financing more. Use the payment function in the Excel template that you can download here for your badge and create these scenarios. You can also use any spreadsheet, of course, Google Docs, Apple Numbers, whatever you're using. You can use a financial calculator. There's all sorts of options. You don't have to use Excel. We're just making this accessible to you to make it easier. Okay, so let's look at this scenario, right? Use Excel financial calculator for the badge template to perform the calculations. The affordability scenarios will show you how sensitive the property value is to interest rate changes. So In other words, where is that pressure going to lie? Rates come down, you see the market catch on fire and prices go up. Rates go up, the market softens, and it's more of what they call a buyer's market. By the way, as a little aside here, I always thought that was a bit of a misnomer to talk about a buyer's market and a seller's market, or a good market and a bad market. Everybody seems to consider the good market to be the market where prices are increasing like crazy. Now, why is that good? It's not always good. It's good if you own a lot of real estate, of course. But if you're looking to enter the market and buy real estate, it's not as good because it's a seller's market, not a buyer's market. It's just always struck me as odd over the years that everybody considers the seller's market to be the, quote, good, unquote, market. As interest rates move higher, the sensitivity risk increases because average mortgage balances for the same level of payment are higher, of course. Okay, so what are the action items in this one? This one is more done by you as an exercise using the tools that you download than it is by us here on the screen because it's very interactive. So we want you to go and calculate the monthly payment of a $100,000 and a $200,000 property with 20% down and a 30-year mortgage. But what you're going to notice is going to amaze you. Remember how I started out when I talked about 4% versus 5%? Calculate it at these different rates and you'll see how incredibly important interest rates are to the marketplace. They're not the only factor, but they are huge. It makes a big difference. So when you calculate this at 4, 5, 6, 7, and even 8%, which by the way, historically 8% isn't really that high. Okay? Some people say to me, hey, Jason, when you got in the business, rates were much higher than 8%. Yes, that's true. And they were on the downslide. So people thought they were a bargain. It's amazing how that perspective is, okay? So use the lesson template in Excel, and all you have to do is just do the calculations. The formulas are in there for you, and then just take a screenshot and upload them for your badge completion. Hey, we're going to see you on the next lesson, and we got a lot of great stuff to come. We're almost wrapping up this module. Then we've got several other modules, so there's a lot to dive into, but by the end of this course, you are going to have the tools to be an awesome real estate investor.